Some of the protesters demonstrating in Manhattan were chanting, "What do we want?" Dead cops. When do we want it? Now.
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
Today, we live in a time where the white man will be picked off, and there's nothing he can do about it. His day is up. His time is up. We will witness more executions and killing of white people and cops than we ever had before. We see with the Houston, Texas shooting, and we see with the news reporting shooting in Virginia. It's about to go down. It's open season on killing white people and crackers. The Black Lives Matter movement wasn't enough.
Listen up, Patriots. I drove all the way from Florida to Houston, and I'm standing in front of you at the gas station where Darren Goforth was brutally slain and executed. While he was fueling his vehicle, a black man walked up behind him, put a round in the back of his head, and then unloaded 14 more rounds into the police officer as he lay on the ground dying.
This rhetoric has gotten out of control. We've heard Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. Well, cops' lives matter too. So why don't we just drop the qualifier and just say lives matter and take that to the bank?
Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon. Pigs in a blanket, fry like bacon.
If you aren't familiar to the term pigs in a blanket, what it's referring to is police officers in body bags. In December, Ishmael Brinsley posted on his Instagram page that he was going to go put pigs in a blanket before going and slaughtering 2 New York City police officers dead in their patrol car while they were eating lunch.
Saturday afternoon, officers Rafael Ramos and Wenjin Liu were sitting in their patrol car in Brooklyn when 28-year-old Ishmael Brinsley walked up to their vehicle, pulled a gun, and shot them both in the head.
Let's bring in former Washington, D.C. homicide detective and Fox News contributor Rod Wheeler. Rod, thanks so much for being with us. Your reaction this morning?
Absolutely. I've been following this story all night long, and it's really interesting how it's starting to develop in terms of what's going on with the investigation now. Now, just so that the viewers know, the police were able to actually make an arrest of 3 individuals, a woman and 2 other individuals, 2 guys. And what they're doing, they're interviewing them now to try to find out who was behind this attack, what role did they play in this attack, and whether or not there's any other planned attacks here in the United States. Now, I just learned from some law enforcement colleagues in Washington that most police departments in the U.S. are on high alert as a result of that incident last night. Now, they have already been on high alert, but I'll submit to you that they're on extra high alert this morning, Maria.
Yeah, and we've been talking this morning, Rod, about the changing tactics that police have been taking on because of the so-called Ferguson effect.
That's right, and we're going to continue to see that. You know, police departments, police officers evolve as the situation evolves, and that's just something that we normally do, and we're going to have to do that now. We're going to definitely have to ride 2, 3-man cars depending upon the area that we're in. We are more of a target now. And the other thing that I was listening to Steve Rogers talk earlier, and he was 100% correct when he was saying that this has some of the trappings of a terrorist attack or a group that's organized like ISIS or somebody like that, because you cannot conduct this type of attack against police officers within by planning it within like 24 to 48 hours. This takes extensive amounts of time, so I think that's another area that the law enforcement agencies are definitely going to be looking at.
Hey, Rod, Steve here, and thanks for your service, my friend. Rod,
sure.
To the issue of leadership, if you could discuss that with us a minute. We're hearing from police officers around the country and the civilians, both the minority communities and other communities, that we're without a leader. We're without leaders who are standing up for law enforcement for what is right in the criminal justice system.
Right, and you know what, we do have leaders, Steve. Kelly Wright and I from Fox News talked about this extensively this morning. We have a lot of leaders, but I think, unfortunately, some of our young African-American males, they are following the wrong leaders. We have clergy people and just people in the community that's doing a lot of things, mentors, but we just have to kind of refocus our attention on them, and hopefully they will recognize that there are people in the communities that, that does respect them, as long as they respect themselves.
Well, Maria, as we said earlier, as Rod's point, Chief Brown, he's one of those leaders from the African-American community that we could point to as a role model.
That's right, and Chief Brown said that he believes 4 suspects coordinated the attack with rifles and positioned themselves in triangulated locations near the end of the route that the protesters planned to take. The police had 3 people in custody. They were initially negotiating with that 4th suspect who ended up killing himself in the garage in downtown Dallas. Dagan.
Rod, you mentioned that attack like this takes time. The planning of it would take time. What about the training that it would require to execute something like this?
Oh, absolutely. And you can tell just from looking at the video, especially law enforcement folks, we can tell that these individuals had proper training to some degree because they knew exactly where their targets were. They knew how to hit their targets. And the fact that they even came wearing body armor tells me that they've been somewhere practicing. We know that the threat has changed in this country over the past few years. Law enforcement is changing with that threat. We're ready to deal with it, but I think the community has really got to stand behind our law enforcement and give us the support we need to eradicate that threat.
Now, at the beginning of the interview, Rod, you said that we're just not getting the cooperation that the police would like. The 3 suspects are a woman who was taken from the garage. The 2 others were taken in for questioning after a traffic stop. But you're right. Chief Brown is saying we want to know more, and we're not getting the cooperation to know that the answer of why, the motivation, who they are from these 3 suspects in custody.
That's right. And you know what, Maria, see, that goes again to what Steve and I have been talking about as far as this may be related to terrorist groups. Because terrorist groups like ISIS, they're not going to talk at all. If these were just 3 regular, suspects in the shooting or whatever, we could get them to talk. But these folks aren't talking. Again, I think these people are trained. They were orchestrated. They were calculated. And just like President Obama said, it was a despicable act that they did. We need to find out everything we can about these people and snip it in the bud if anything else is being planned.
You know, Chief Brown said, Steve, that they plan to, quote, injure and kill as many law enforcement officers as they could. So, I mean, they're targeting law enforcement right now. That's not something that ISIS has been doing.